I'm John.
And I'm James.
This is... Wait, what?
Please kill me. Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm James.
And this is Games with John and James, episode 5. Before you start singing, I want to jump in and talk about what we're talking about today. The conversation in the last episode about the mascot draft, don't start with it. It got us thinking about originality in video games, and stop doing that. You can't see it, people listening, but he's preparing. He's basically doing the Eric Cartman, well, before he sings about Kyle's mom's a bitch.
Damn it. You just stole my thunder.
Yeah, I did.
So, John hit a really good point. Originality in video games. I feel video games nowadays, they've hit a crossroads. Do I go for that originality? Do I try to come up with unique game mechanics that could be high risk, high reward? Or do I cookie cutter the shit out of it and make Call of Duty 500?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the divide nowadays when it comes to mechanics and originality.
Which is interesting because I think I'm going to use the word renaissance in terms of like indie games and major AAA games as well. There are so many different types of games now that maybe originality is no longer a question of originality or originality in mechanics. It's more like, what kind of games do companies still even make? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I think... So, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Right now, the games that are played most, Smash Brothers, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Minecraft, Apex Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all of those, which one has some originality?
I mean, well, okay. So let's how about we start from like the beginning? How about we do that? Because in terms of video game history, it's really easy to be original when there was like no precedent set. The reason why Pong was an original video game concept is because no one made something like that before.
Definitely.
So of course a table tennis game is going to be innovative because like nothing existed. So there's that.
I mean, you hit a really good point. Like, as we've progressed, originality has evolved. So easy example, we talked about a few episodes ago, Chrono dying in Chrono Trigger.
Okay, so I want to focus on mechanics first, and then we can go on there.
Fine. Okay, we'll talk about mechanics then. New Game Plus in Chrono Trigger.
Fucking...
Ha!
This is what I deal with, ladies and gentlemen. But...
So...
Go ahead. Since you brought it up.
So, back in the day, replayability, it really wasn't there. It was play the game, beat the game, get a little bit of merchandise, get advertised at till the cows come home so you can buy the next one and the next one.
We're jumping over so much history, though.
You can touch on the history. I don't want to go too far back, like in the Atari days and
I do.
Okay, well, I'm rewind. So
I like how this has already been our most contentious episode ever.
So
not even the mascot one.
You know what? We'll start with the Atari.
All right, here we go.
So
let's take you back to the dawn of time. So originality in video games. When video games first started existing, it was easy to be original.
So you look at the Atari.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about Pong, and we can talk about all those originals. Every game that came out, you couldn't say, oh, it's like this, or oh, it's like this. They were the starting points, right?
Sure.
So Space Invaders, a starting point. Pong, a starting point. Even E.T.
was original.
And
not every original idea is good, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, there's a reason they got put into a dumpster.
Yes.
If you have one nowadays, though, you will be very happy with your wallet.
Mm-hmm. Your wallet will be very happy and very fat.
So, originality, it wasn't really talked about in the sense that it is now. So the argument nowadays, oh, that game, it's not that original. It's just a clone of this.
It's the same thing as the same game last year, right? And I want to touch on that because originality in video games for me was always about iteration, right? So you brought up Space Invaders, a very iconic space shooter game. It was an arcade game. Aliens come down. You have to move left and right and shoot them. Okay, so What happens next? Well, we have Galaxian, Namco's version, where like the aliens fly in different patterns to try and hit you. That's an innovation right there. That's original. And then Galaga. Oh, now you can move up and down and all around across the screen? Great.
You can tell which one of us is older here, folks. Oh wait, that is me. Damn.
Maybe I just have more respect for my elders than you do.
I respect my elders, but you're 95 in game years. I'm only 80.
Whatever. But what I'm saying is that like originality in video games took more of an iterative process. So maybe your game isn't the one with like the white spaceship that can go up and down and left and right. Maybe yours is the one that just goes left and right. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And so further expanding upon that, you remember Asteroids?
Yes, I do.
Remember how it felt 3D, even though it was not? Like it felt like for the time, it felt like holy shit, I'm here.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I think a good point with this. You look at the Atari, and then you look at kind of what spawned after that. It was the arcade heyday.
Sure.
And you wanted a game that had that originality brought the kids back. So that's when we saw, Galaga making waves. We even saw Pac-Man coming back, remember?
Mm-hmm. Well,
you had, and then Asteroids. Like,
it was about creating simple concepts that were engaging and fun, and that could be bringing people into the arcades themselves. Which is actually, it's funny because you mentioned it earlier, like, the cycle would be that you buy a game, you beat a game, you get hyped up for the sequel. Like, in those days, it wasn't even about that. Sometimes you didn't even beat it, or they were just unbeatable. They would just go on forever.
Oh, you mean Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? You said unbeatable.
Well, no, I'm talking about
arcade.
No, I didn't. I beat it as a grown-ass man.
Exactly, and you still hated it.
Yeah, because there are better Turtles games on Nintendo.
They're better Nintendo what?
There are better Nintendo games on Turtles. But no. What I'm saying is like I'm trying to stay within the arcade realm first because that's where this all started. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is that like Donkey Kong didn't have an ending. It had a game over. If you ran out of quarters and you died, it's over. Or if you just died in general. Or it had a kill screen.
Well, that was every arcade. Even if you were doing well, the game had to end.
Yeah.
And that's what kept, I think in this game, we'll say the intro to gaming, I think that originality, it mattered a lot because if your arcade cabinet literally is put quarter in, do one thing, done, versus Asteroids, where it's put quarter in and feel like you're literally flying for your life.
And score chase and stuff, get a high score.
Exactly. If you couldn't hold up with an original idea that was engaging,
you just fizzled out.
You failed. And we'll tailor this to points for nowadays and keep going back in time. So look, time travel, Chrono Trigger plug.
We're never going to escape the specter of that game, are we?
Never.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so
you look at nowadays, originality's lost. There are original.
I feel it's changed. It's not necessarily lost.
So originality is few and far in between. You have Call of Duty 2042 coming out, or Battlefield
2042 and Call of Duty Vanguard, and Fortnite's still around and Minecraft's still being made.
Cool. I'm literally playing Battlefield in the year 2042. Mm-hmm. Neat. Awesome. I'm playing Call of Duty Vanguard. Cool.
We're going back to World War II a third and hopefully final time.
Like, I think the big problem, so honestly, we'll tailor it back. Like, gaming nowadays, it's mainstream. And it's mainstream to the point that little kids, from more so than like back when we were young, we're talking 2, 3, 4-year-olds are actively gaming in a sense for what they can, from mobile games to very easy intro Nintendo games. And because gaming as a whole has blown up so much, originality is a very scary thing to do if you're a smaller studio.
Well, okay, so this is where the crux of what we're going to talk about actually comes into play. So originality in terms of either narrative instances or gaming mechanics, does that really matter anymore? because we talked about it already. Back in when games were just existing for the first time ever, it was really easy to be original because nothing else really existed. So a lot of genres and a lot of franchises were established because of those new innovative ideas that iterated on older ideas. So if now the culture kind of accepts the fact that maybe all of that kind of stuff has been pioneered, okay, so how do we work within the framework of that?
I think it's changing more. So we'll use JRPGs, for example.
Of course we will.
I know, right? So Final Fantasy 16 is coming out. And if you've seen the preview, it's going back to medieval times. But from what we've seen combat-wise, is it a Final Fantasy? Is it a Dark Souls-ish game?
Oh, God, no.
We haven't gotten enough to where we can fully say, but from what they're showing us, it is a complete deviation to bring it full circle. So I think the originality has changed a little bit nowadays to where it's not original to be original like it needed to be back in the day to succeed. It's how do I stay relevant without sacrificing my identity?
There's also I think especially when this comes into play with certain Nintendo games where sometimes they push the idea of gaming mechanics as in ways of control methods way more than they push the actual idea of fun. I remember with the whole controversy of Star Fox Zero when that came out, and you had to aim with the Wii U gamepad and also pilot with the analog stick while still looking at two screens at the same time, and it
Gross.
Killed the game.
Gross.
It straight up killed it. You could do button controls on that, and it would still be a fun game. It wouldn't be innovative in how you hold the controller, but it would be a new Star Fox game.
Yeah. We'll segue back in time. So we talked about the Atari. We talked about arcades. We'll advance a little bit. We'll go to the regular Nintendo. So gaming kind of fell out a little bit. It was just kind of stale. So I would say it was mid 70s up until
1983.
Yeah, 83, 84.
Yeah.
There was a lull where games didn't matter. Computer games kind of took over. Your Might and Magics, your Wizardries,
simulations. Yeah.
That took over for a little bit. It was fine. For me personally, it helped spawn my genre of gaming. So thank you.
Uh-huh.
But then you hit the early 80s and the Nintendo comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of changes the dynamic because it had so much more power. We're talking a decade of technology advancing.
A decade of power. Okay.
A decade. A meat sponge of power.
Kill me. We're never letting this die. Anyway, so Nintendo games come out and the landscape of gaming changed, is what you were saying. Go on.
So when the Nintendo came out, it changed. You look at Super Mario Brothers 1.
Mm.
That could not have been done back in the day on a computer or an Atari to the level of success that Nintendo did it with. You had platformers, because if you look at Mario advanced on all of the basic platforming we got from the Atari, all of the basic platforming you got from computer-based games.
Well, think about what platformers were before Mario, and it was Pitfall.
E.T.
Maybe. I'm not even going to justify that. So, we're seeing the point I'm trying to make is that Mario Brothers 1 is the iterative process of what games were and the originality in games that we saw that eventually led to Super Mario Bros. But what we're also seeing is that because of the evolution of that landscape of gaming, you certainly had arcade-style titles. Duck Hunt is an arcade game. It's an arcade game where you put a quarter in and you shoot ducks that fly up, and if you miss enough ducks, you lose, right? And the dog laughs at you, and you feel inadequate, and you got a small wiener. Anyway, what I'm saying is the Super Mario Brothers comes out, and that could have been done in an arcade.
It definitely could have. Yeah, you are right.
But what changed is the fact that it had an ending. Technically, you save the princess, right?
So we had hit the point, and I think where John's going, we finally hit the point where there was a closeout. So arcades, your closeout was, hey, I got the high score, or hey, I died, or I advanced to the level where the arcade can no longer continue, and you're not really getting a game over or a finish. It's just, well, shit. Yeah, I think the finish was what? Pac-Man? You had one finish in Pac-Man where, congrats, Pac-Man goes off with his family.
Well, yeah, so, cutscenes and narrative and stuff like that. There was stuff like that in games at the time. But what we're saying is, in terms of having an actual closed experience, was possible now, because not only did you have to you weren't just playing these games in the arcades anymore, you were playing them at home. And so having games with concrete ends or narrative buildups or even like worlds to explore, like when Legend of Zelda first came out, the dynamic of the relationship between games and stuff and the originality therein changed.
And so with the Nintendo, what a lot of people will say, started everything. You have Mario, you have Zelda, you have Metroid, you have Castlevania, you have Contra.
And to be fair, Contra, and even to some extent Castlevania, were home ports or home iterations of arcade experiences.
Exactly. So the Nintendo, for a lot of people, you can look at it as, oh, this was my intro to originality. Even if it wasn't original, it was someone's intro.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we'll advance a little bit, since I can finally talk about my new Game Plus with Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
So you have
I hate how I think it's funny how I sound so exasperated, just like, talking about this fucking game again.
Let's be real. I mean, it's still relevant.
I know, but
it gave us a lot of things.
Tell us about it.
So you advance from the Nintendo, where companies are throwing everything and their mother at you. RBI Baseball, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Super Mario 1, 2, 3, Bases Loaded, Dragon Warrior 1, 2, 3, 4.
Baseball Simulator 1000.
Oh my god.
Base Wars.
Jesus.
All the baseball stars. So many baseball games.
So you have all of that happening, and then technology started advancing at an even more rapid pace. So you have the beginning of the console wars between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, right? And
what about the CDI?
I hate you. So you have that originality that Nintendo or Nintendo properties, however you want to word it, just built upon, as you can see what we're talking about. And now it's, okay, we have more graphical power, we have more storage power, we have more we can put into a video game. It unlocked doors for originality. So I talk about Chrono Trigger. Look at New Game Plus. Had it been done in other games before? Yeah, to a degree.
You've unlocked a second quest.
Look at Legend of Zelda. Remember?
Yep.
You beat it, and then you have to go and beat the Dark World.
Uh-huh. Link to the Past, like that one?
Not Link to the Past. So actually, when you beat the original Zelda, you can go back and play a hard, like when you
the second quest. Yeah.
Yeah, the second quest, the Dark World.
Yeah.
So New Game Plus has been there, but Chrono Trigger was the one that broke it in the way that the replayability was endless. So there are 11 to 13 endings, depending if you want to count the ones that are a little similar, a little bit different, or you did this but didn't do this, so this isn't here. And you have to play that game over again. You can get your first initial ending at the Millennial Fair. Then you can get an ending back in 600 AD. And it's every point in the game, you have a major moment, or right before a major moment, gives you an alternative ending. And when you talk about replayability on a Super Nintendo game, you're easily looking maybe about 100 hours if you're going at it at a slow pace.
Yeah.
And
really? Chrono Trigger?
Well, if you're going at it, so you can beat Chrono Trigger in 20 hours, easy. But if you're slow pacing it, enjoying the story, playing at your leisure, you can put a lot of time into getting all of those endings. Because, one of them is literally, keep Chrono dead. Don't revive him, go beat the game.
Let the protagonist die.
If we're talking about that in the vein of New Game Plus, that's you playing the entire game all the way through to where he dies again. And as you've played it, that is very far into the game.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is that, as technology improved and the landscape of video games changed, we started to see a narrative push in originality as well as it complements a mechanical one. And so that's why I think this is an important conversation to have, because calling back again, it was easy to be original in the early days because nothing existed before. And so originality in games changed generationally. So the first one was, okay, you made a game where a person walks. What if I made a character who runs? Whereas the next iteration was like, okay, so how do we implement these new graphical technologies, or work with 3D, or use narrative ways to innovate so people feel more character connections and story connections over the game mechanics and stuff.
You make Bubsy 3D, right?
Thank you, Eidetic. But it's what I'm saying is like the what constituted as originality in video games changed generationally, and so
Absolutely.
it was easy to see why like a new 3D game was original because who has made 3D video games before, and then from there it was like when we saw the leap from the PS1, Saturn, and that kind of era, the N64 to the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era. That's I think where we saw the last biggest push for that kind of stuff. Like when you saw like the first like, you know, graphical trailers or the new games coming out on those consoles, those were mind blowing because you're like, whoa, these are the new
Final
games.
Fantasy X
Yeah, even me, I'll say that one.
was
Shenmue, even on the Dreamcast, even a console before it.
Don't mind the laugh that I won't replicate. As you know, I do sound effects and everything.
Please don't. Yeah,
much
I know.
To John's just sadness of eternity over there. That one I will not do. But you had Final Fantasy X come out, as he mentioned, for the PlayStation 2, and that turned the world on its head. Graphics, light years ahead of their time.
Dude, I look at the bouncer. The bouncer still holds up graphically.
Voice acting,
Yes, it does.
Laugh omitted.
Uh-huh.
Look at the voice acting for what it was back then. Voice acting had been done before to a degree. I mean, look at Conker's Bad Fur Day, right? We talked about that one. Voice acting.
Dude, the one I think of the most is Metal Gear Solid 2. Comparing Metal Gear Solid 1 to 2 is night and day.
Exactly. And I think... So, as you hear us talking, folks, this is us talking about our consoles early on to where we're now starting to get into the next gen of like your PlayStation 2, your Xbox, your GameCube. Like
this is the sixth generation, yeah.
Yeah, and then originality at that point, it's small. So Final Fantasy X, as I mentioned, the voice acting, the stopping power of the graphics.
Yeah.
On top of that, so
it was an innovation in technology. That's what it was. It was started with mechanics, and it became about graphics and technology. And I don't want to jump ahead too far. I want you to keep talking about it. But then I have some stuff to say about now times. So,
well, we haven't gotten to now times yet. You have kept me grounded from advancing too much. Actually, no, I apologize. He did let me time travel to the future for some points.
Right. So, okay.
So John's going to take a time portal.
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say about this era of stuff because I can say it too. One of the other things too, just graphics-wise as well, is the exploration of different graphic styles. I remember when I saw Jet Set Radio for the first time on the Dreamcast, and it was the cel-shaded, toon-shaded looking style, and I'm like, this is something I've never seen before. And also a type of game I've never seen before, a graffiti, rollerblade, skateboard, open-world game. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, like you mentioned that, like Dragon Quest VIII. Remember Beautiful Joe and Parappa the Rapper?
Yeah, dude, it's cool because we did still see original ideas that were complemented by the technology of the time. But even then, if you wanted to break it down, you could just say that, oh, Beautiful Joe is just a 2D beat 'em up, but you have the mechanic of time control. Like, you can do that, but that's still something no one ever did yet.
So John mentioned the cel shading, and a lot of games, cel shading wise, were really fun. So I mentioned I mentioned Dragon Quest VIII. That was actually the game that kept me invested in JRPGs. I had been kind of burnt out. I'm a kid. I finish my homework or don't do my homework. I'm literally playing a fucking video game.
You're playing World of Warcraft.
Not that time yet. Yeah. I was still safe.
Okay.
And I had almost been fully burnt out on JRPGs that I started to branch out. I was playing Ratchet and Clanks. I was playing shoot 'em ups. Branched into Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evils, and when I got Dragon Quest VIII, it sucked me right back in because of the cel shading. And I'm mentioning that because as you're talking, so John expanded upon you had this into this into this, and it's that cel shading advanced even more now with time control in Beautiful Joe 2, advanced into Dragon Quest VIII, and then you look at, I would argue, the pinnacle of like a cel shading game in the PS2 era, Okami.
Yeah.
That was so visually beautiful.
See, what you're noting is actually a micro, like transition of what graphic power did. And so now we had to realize, like, okay, we can make pretty photorealistic graphics, for 480p at the time. What if instead of graphics, we focused on aesthetics and how things actually look? And because graphics will always serve aesthetics over anything else.
So we started to see a shift. Mechanics were there. The game engines were there. Your worlds were there. But now you're having small, subtle shifts to advance originality a little bit. Half-Life 2. We've heaped nothing but praises for that game. Half-Life 2 had the graphics.
It had the technology. It's still a bar today, like we've mentioned. Yeah, it has its mechanics, it has its gameplay, it has its narrative, it has all those innovations too. Again, all of these facets and iteration over time create originality.
So I think we can transition this to the elephant in the room of today.
Okay. I've got a lot to say about it, but it seems like you have some stuff to say too.
Well, for me, and I don't know how you feel on this, I feel the elephant in the room is, at what point do I decide to try to have some form of originality, or do I just become a pseudo clone of something done bad? So, case in point, Hades.
Oh, yeah.
I love that game. I got him into that game.
Supergiant has effectively released the same game like 5 times.
And it gets better and better every single time.
It's the iterative process. I get it.
And look at what we're talking about.
Yeah, how about that?
So you have Hades.
Mm-hmm.
I sunk, so I was looking, because I sunk almost 250 hours into that game. That's insane.
That's a lot.
And I did it on the Switch before it came out for the PS4 and the PS5.
So you're going to do it again?
No, I picked it up for the PS5. One day I'll come back to it, but now is not that day. I'm having fun with other games. Done bad? So a game that is basically, or for lack of a better expression,
a Hades clone.
Zenjin, also on the Switch. Chinese-based game. It's bad.
Yeah, you picked that one up, and you were kind of excited because it looked like a Hades clone.
Yeah, we were in Maine, remember?
Yeah, I do.
We were in Maine, coming off of a wonderful work trip, and on our way back, we're literally hitting every game store you can imagine.
Every single one we could find that was like a hole in the wall that wasn't like a GameStop, we tried to find it.
So that was a fun ride. Thank you, Maine. You had the plug.
Yes, you did.
And I picked it up.
I spent like $300 in one store. Anyway, but continue.
So we'll save that for another episode.
Mm-hmm. Gaming excursions.
So, and I looked at it. I was like, "Oh, this is cool." I think it looks like it could be like Hades. It wasn't. The game tried to be, and it failed in so many ways. It was slow. It was laggy. There were frame rate issues, combat issues. I could keep on going. The item issue was just horrible. Oh, stack these items. They'll give you extra. No, they don't give you extra benefits. You're lying to me, game. I hit this enemy. Oh, no, you didn't hit this enemy. It was rushed. And I think that's the big thing in the room. It's at what point are you willing to, you kind of have to bet on your company to allow originality. Supergiant. They allowed originality with Hades. Yes, it was the 5th iteration of games they had done, but
when it's polished to a mere shine,
they let it grow.
And what's funny is that in terms, if you wanted to break down that originality in Hades, it's an isometric beat 'em up roguelite game. And there have been games like that even in as far back as PC games and stuff in the 90s. But it's interesting because the way that you describe it and the way that I personally see it, there are 2 different conversations that we could have about it. Because for me, I feel like we truly are, again, in a renaissance when it comes to what games are actually still being made, but by who and for what audience, right? Because the big AAA studios really only seem to exist now to create giant open world games or the freaking stalwart, tentpole franchises like the Assassin's Creeds, like the Calls of Duties and all that kind of stuff. You rarely get as much as I kind of poo-poo certain PlayStation exclusives, there's a reason why games like The Last of Us and games like God of War appeal, because they're wholly themselves experiences. And the originality is explored within like that aspect of it. Like what the way that people describe like even God of War is like it feels like a very personal, explorative art piece, but it also feels like a AAA video game because they gave the resources to the team to make it. Whereas like I'm trying to think. I think about Hades, and then I think about like a cheapo game called Smashing the Battle, which is like exactly the same game, but just, you know, worse, in quotes. But yeah, like, and so I think what's also interesting about that is the other conversation we could be having is how we actually even talk about video games, right? So, as a challenge, play a video game and try to describe it to someone without using other games as like a tentpole for how you describe it. You know what I mean?
It's hard nowadays. So, current one right now, Super Smash Brothers. It's been out, thank you Daddy Sakurai, for 6 years of dying for giving us one of the best party fighters out there.
Sure.
If not the best iteration of party fighters.
Ure.
And you got the new kid on the block. Nintendo Switch All-Stars,
Nintendo Switch All-Stars.
Nickelodeon All-Stars.
Could you imagine if instead of Sora flying out in the final reveal, it was fucking SpongeBob? Oh my god.
Oh man. I can't talk today, folks, apparently.
We've been doing this a long time, folks.
You have Nickelodeon All-Stars.
Uh-huh.
And the big talk right now is, it's just a Smash ripoff with Nickelodeon characters.
But if it's fun...
So, fun is what we want games to be. But you have so many knockoffs nowadays. Battlefield is Call of Duty. Call of Duty is Apex. Apex is...
Titanfall is whatever.
And big studios can succeed with that. EA, they could re-release, if they wanted, get the rights to Bubsy 3D and just re-release it as the piece of garbage it is. And they have the money to do that.
I also like the idea that EA sees Bubsy as like a hot commodity. Like that just seems hilarious to me.
That's literally EA being like, let's give them our meat sponge.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Now you're just shoehorning it. Stop it.
It's dying after this episode, so I had to get a few in.
Okay.
I cannot crack a meat sponge joke after this.
Okay, I'll hold you to that. But I want to touch back on what I was saying though. So like, okay, let's say a game that you played, Scarlet Nexus, comes out. Describe that to me without using other video games to describe how it plays or what you do in it.
Do you want me to do that right now?
Sure, if you can do it off the top of your head. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but if you can do that, show it to me.
A role-playing game with telekinetic powers and an overarching story that feels immersive.
What's the gameplay like?
The gameplay is really fun. You have big combat, engaging environments, interactive environments. You have just a lot of fun playing it.
Okay. What kind of attacks do you use?
See, this is horrible because I've literally only played a couple hours of it because I got sucked into something else.
Okay.
Give me another one. Abort.
No, what I was trying to lead you to was like, if you look at any review of that game, they're like, Scarlet Nexus is a perfect blend of Devil May Cry and JRPG storytelling.
JRPTs? What's it? Tell me what a JRPT is.
Japanese role-playing titties.
God.
Anyway, but what I'm saying is that like
you're no longer allowed that one. If Meat Sponge is dying,
I can't talk about titties anymore.
RPG titties are dying for you.
Let's just Meat Sponge is sticking around. What I'm saying is that like if you look at any review, even as far back as like when God of War came out on the PS2, they're like, this borrows a lot of action DNA from like a Devil May Cry. And it's like, does it though? I mean, like when it came out, it didn't feel like Devil May Cry. It felt wholly like its own.
I think.
But it's the way that people talk. Again, it's the way people talk about games that makes me feel like the originality is getting sucked out of it, because the way that we compare and contrast video games is with other video games.
Well, it's easy marketing. I can say, a personal project of mine, I've been working on a video game, creating my own through the RPG Maker system for a long time. And it would be super easy of me to be expressing it as, oh, it plays like this RPG. You'll get vibes of this. You'll get this. And that's a cop-out in a sense. Well, it's easy marketing.
Well, it's also, I'm pretty sure you're talking to other people who also play games.
I think... So back in the day, I'm taking John out of his time portal into my time portal.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how many Chrono Trigger plugs can I make in this episode? Because that's a lot.
I can just delete this episode and no one will ever know.
Well, thanks, John. You're fired.
I fired you. I deleted the episode.
Games with Blank and James.
Games with Blank and Blank. Simon and Garfunkel. Anyway,
we're both deleted.
Yeah, we'll just have an entire 40-minute episode of silence. Anyway, continue.
So, back in the day, you didn't really have a way to advertise this game feels like this. So, for example, Street Fighter 2. When it was advertised as a fighter. Mm-hmm. It was advertised as traveling across the world, competing in this weird hidden martial arts tournament for determining the blah, blah, blah. Now, it wasn't the best advertising campaign by far.
Well, like the way that I would advertise it is like, in-depth control with like, light, medium, and heavy punches. That wasn't done ever. Like Street Fighter 1 maybe existed, but no one fucking played it. But
so you had advertising like that. When Sonic came around, it was advertised as its own entity. It was advertised about itself, for itself, and the experience you would get playing it.
And also, what's funny, though, is I think that game in particular also brought in the comparison stuff. Because, like, if you look at the advertising of Sega, Genesis does what Nintendo don't, they spearheaded that. Mm-hmm. They were the ones who said, we are in direct competition with them, and our system's better. Meh. Like, that kind of stuff.
Those ads were awesome.
They were great.
And so, I think what kind of ties us in a sense, of what we're lacking is... Yes, originality in video games. So we asked, does it matter? My opinion, 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see some originality. At the same time, I don't mind if there are elements of something else that I've already played. Because, let's be real, it's 2021.
Current year argument invalid.
So it's 2021. A lot of mechanics, a lot of things that could be original have been done. Mm-hmm. Some have been done bad, some have been done good, some have been done to perfection, some have been Bubsy 3D. John didn't even see that one coming.
I just hear it again, I'm just like, yeah.
So when it comes to that, I'm fine if there's some, I'm fine if there's none. Give me an enjoyable experience. And I think the big thing that we started to touch on, and we both kind of had the epiphany moment in the middle of our conversation, is marketing is shit nowadays. It feels like Doom. Feels like Fortnite meets this. Feels like this. And it's about communicating to a very insular audience. It feels very, not gatekeepy, but like involuntarily like shutting people out who might have not experienced games. It feels cheap.
Yeah.
It feels cheap.
It's like, a cop-out.
You can't... I get games are going to feel like other games, or games are going to pay homage to other games, as I mentioned with indie RPGs paying homage to Chrono Trigger. Like, I get that.
Or like any RPG, yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure there's influences from everything from everywhere.
Exactly. Like, I understand that. And that's fine.
I want to meet a Draken clone.
Oh my god. Oh no, that would be terrifying.
I think it'd be awesome.
It'd be an experience.
Yeah, it would.
So, if you're going to talk about feels like this, or it is the second coming or spiritual successor of XYZ game,
mm-hmm.
Don't talk about it in your marketing. Market it individually. Market your game for your game.
The funniest thing is that that's such a weird tightrope to walk, because it's just been the status quo for so long. That's why when I complained about it in our first episode, like, we basically made the Dark Souls of this genre of games. Like, no, you didn't. You made Cuphead. You made a boss shooter that is a 2D side-scrolling action shooter game.
So let's be real. You know what made Dark Souls? Evergrace. Remember that game on the PlayStation 2?
No, I don't, but I do remember Kingsfield.
Kingsfield too. So look at Evergrace, look at Kingsfield, play those, and then tell me where Dark Souls came from.
Yeah, and again, maybe that's just more of the iterative process, because those are still From Software games, aren't they?
I believe so, yeah.
So where's the new Metal Wolf chaos? Damn it! But
So you gotta at a certain point, you have to market your game only on your game. If you're advertising your commercial, be it on social media, YouTube, be it on TV, if it's Devil May Cry meets Duke Nukem, and this was it.
But it's called Bulletstorm.
Cool. Like
I basically you pitched that game, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I know that game.
like cool. That's fun to describe it as, but keep that in discussion. Don't keep that in marketing.
Yeah.
If you can market your game independently,
because gamers, like people in the game community are going to talk about, like we talked about it again, like, you know, there's a reason why a lot of first-person shooters that came out after Doom were called Doom clones, because we didn't have the term first-person shooter. We had Doom clone. It's like, oh, we know that game is.
So I think that's honestly like coming full circle. Originality, it's very, very incremental marks here and there. You'll have a little bit of it. You'll have a little more of it. But more often than not, it's an engine has been repurposed or utilized. It's, hey, this was good in this was good in this. I'm going to incorporate this in my vein into my game.
Yeah.
So originality is now starting to become very minimal in the sense that it's been done.
It was like the difference between like EQ and World of Warcraft.
Exactly.
Like, when people who came from EQ to World of Warcraft were like, oh, all that annoying shit's gone. You know what I mean?
Oof.
Or like, and I don't know, for me, so in terms of my answer, does originality in games exist? And it may sound a bit pessimistic, but I just flat out say no. Like, when it comes down to it, like, even to the point where the cynic in me sees the fact that the PlayStation 5 comes out. And one of the first announcements we hear is, don't worry, everyone, Fortnite Battle Royale is coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm like, people are still playing the same friggin' video games they were playing 10 years ago.
Hey, let's be more upfront. It was like 2 minutes into the opening ad campaign, Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about that already too. And it's like
Grand Theft Auto 5.
That game came out in 2013.
So I would say originality, it exists in small avenues. RPGs will try to do something a little bit original, but they won't deviate too far from the path. There's a mold that has been created for every genre. Stick to the mold. You can create your own little iteration in between the mold, but you stick to the tried and true. It's kind of a good thing when you think about it. Like, if gaming has evolved that much to where we have this and we can continue experiencing new games, even if it is in the mold, I'm okay with that. Because me personally, I'm 35. I'm old, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, brother.
You went Hulkamania. All right. But okay, so
I still want people to experience, I want them to feel the joy of a video game. Like I feel when I pick up a new JRPG and I dive into it. And I'll admit, like most JRPGs, as I mentioned before in our veins of in our perfect video game episode, tropes. I get it. I accept it. It is what it is. But I still play it because it's fun to me.
Yeah.
And
if those didn't have it, they probably wouldn't feel like that kind of game to you anymore.
Feel a little weird, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've come full circle in the sense that it's accepted that originality is very few and far in between outside of subtle shifts. And it's now just about, do I follow the mold good?
Well. Do I follow the mold well?
Good.
Okay.
Bad English.
So it's
what's for breakfast.
So I want us to wrap up. So what I'm going to ask is I'm going to posit the question. What do you think the next innovation of video games will be? And it can apply to whatever genre or whatever type of thing that you want to create it. Because for me personally, while I still see VR as this far off distant thing that is prohibitively expensive, I still feel that, like, in terms of how you play games is still always going to be a bar in terms of innovation. Because I remember what it felt like when the control pad came out. And it was no longer a joystick and buttons. It was the control pad, the controller, or when people used mouse and keyboard to look around, like, or when
the analog stick came out.
Exactly, the dual analog stick, and how like the first time you ever had like that type of aiming in a video game, or that kind of stuff, or even when the first VR came out.
I
think how you interact with video games is going to change.
My friend.
Friend what?
Shamelessly funny story here.
All right, here we go.
A friend has a VR system, and he is terrified of all things scary and horror.
Oh, no.
And we...
So you tortured your friend. You tortured your friend.
He put the VR system on, and he's playing a horror game. And we have it set up where we can watch it on the big screen TV. So picture us, sitting, eating popcorn, having fun. He goes around to the corner, jump scare, literally screams, and then fetal position on the floor. Hilarious. Messed up.
Yeah, fucked up.
Like super fucked up, but hilarious. I
want to talk about it just a little bit more, because like in terms, I posed the question to you and I basically just answered my own question. So with that in mind, like something like a VR or some type of new thing that we might not even know yet, how do you think your favorite genres of games would survive in that new environment?
Yeah. So for me, I feel that
VR dating sim.
Gross. I hate it.
It probably exists already.
It's already there. On Vocaloids, right?
Oh, God, you're right. I meant like, you play freaking Fire Emblem Three Houses and you put the Oculus on and you have tea time with your buddy.
I hate you.
What do you mean you hate me?
I don't want to imagine that because I know it's somewhere out there and not in a good way.
Well, maybe not in the way that your mind perverts it. I'm asking you, what do you think would happen? Like, what would make your games continue to thrive in an environment like that?
Honestly, if gaming continues to change and evolve, because VR is being explored a little bit more. Beat Saber helped solidify VR in a way that other games had not. Just fun, party game, hectic, manic. It's just a good time.
Yeah, because so far, like, I think this is why Half-Life Alyx was a huge testing ground for that kind of stuff, where it's like a longer form, narrative-driven game explored through VR.
The current model of JRPGs being created, it would be very hard to see that in a VR capacity. Just because you could have the story, you could have the narration, but with VR being more exploratory, VR being more, I'm immersing you even more into the story, because, hell, it's VR. It's literally there. You're, air quotes here, in the game.
What about like a Xenoblade Chronicles?
So action RPGs, absolutely. And Xenoblade Chronicles definitely is a JRPG, but it would be hard for what currently is the trend for the genre I love. It would be hard to high school dating sim. Like, at what point does that get borderline awkward in culture? Because how do you feel a parent would be, little Johnny, what are you doing?
Well, the game's rated M. You know what I mean?
Well, I get that, but that didn't stop us from getting Conker's Bad Fur Day back in the day.
What I'm saying, okay, so what you're saying is that, like, content will eventually matter more.
So for VR, you have to have content, because right now it's all gimmicky, right? It's open door, investigate.
It's desk. Like a roller coaster or like a puzzle game. Or Beat Saber.
Yeah. Beat Saber does it best, because it's not just, let me open this desk, be a little investigative, be kind of cheeky with easily done mechanics. It's, I'm keeping you so engaged because it literally feels like the blocks are about to smack you in the face.
You know what's interesting? Is that we're talking about originality and mechanics and technology and all this kind of stuff, and we're eventually talking about the damn Power Glove. Like, what kind of fun things can you do in VR? I don't know, open a drawer? Fuck.
So, for my genre of games, I don't know. I would like to see it continue into the VR realm, but I truly don't know if it will or not. Makes me a little sad, but at the same time, my mecca of JRPGs at home will take care of me and comfort me at night.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where we can wrap it up, is that, like, while we don't know what the future is going to eventually hold, I think the cool thing is that we've evolved to a point where the discussion no longer is like, what thing haven't I seen before? It's like, what experience do I just want?
Definitely. And I think with gaming being as mainstream as it is, even though we might not be seeing as much originality, more and more people are getting vested in what for us was just like a passing hobby. Like back in the day, not everybody gamed. Not everybody had a Sega. Not everybody had a Nintendo or an NES.
Or even an arcade they could go to.
It was new. And even when you get into the Sega and the Super Nintendo, it was still new. And it was, as we mentioned in our co-op episode, it was, hey, let's go to John's house, hop on, play Mario Kart on his Super Nintendo, or hey, let's go to James's house and play Bomberman on his Sega. And nowadays, with it being mainstream, we're seeing so many more people who probably wouldn't be gamers finding something they connect with. And that's huge. We have a mutual friend who, so a little bit older than us, got into Fortnite. So shout out to the Legend of Buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Legend of Buddy. So our friend, he really got into Fortnite. And not only did he get into Fortnite at an older age, like he got in, he vested, he dove in, he let's played with friends. We literally watched one of his videos. He showed us one of his very first videos.
He's damn good, and like
he's sniping people floating in the air
with an AR, not even with a sniper rifle. Like,
it was awesome.
And what's crazy is thinking that there are people out there who are better than him, and not just blowing smoke, man. But I'm just saying, like I'm trying to picture. I'm like, how? Like, what does that look like?
And even though we may not have much originality left in games, I think the good takeaway we can have is the fact that gaming has become so mainstream, there's even grandmas playing it on YouTube.
Thanks, Grandma Buddy. And yeah, I think with that, I guess the only thing left to say is that I've been John.
And I'm James.
And this has been Games with John and James. So, let us know what you think. Sound off in the comments, and we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, like we said, check us on Instagram, Facebook, at Games with John and James. Let us know. We want to be as engaged with you as possible, especially on topics like this. We're going to delve into the serious. We're going to delve into the fun. This is a little bit more of a serious topic, so we want to keep this dialogue flowing, because maybe, just maybe,
you'll be the one who comes up with the newest original idea that blows everyone away. I'm looking forward to that shit.
So on that note, thank you so much for sticking around. Episode 5 is in the books, thanks to you.
All right. Take care, everybody. One love. Peace out.
See you.